Akhandamandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. So, pranam everyone. We are now in the 4th chapter. Today we are doing the 12th shloka of the 4th chapter. The shloka from our Samskriti is a shloka from the Hitopadesha. This shloka is very often cited in the traditional education systems in India. Vidya dadati vinayam, vinayat yati patratam, patratva dhanam apnoti, dhanat dharmam tatasukam. So this basically glorifies or tells us about the value of education or value of learning, value of knowledge, why we should acquire knowledge, why we should acquire learning and become educated. So it says Vidya gives, Vidya dadati, dadati means gives, Vinayam. Vinaya means humility or modesty. Humility is that quality in one by which one does not think of oneself as all-knowing, or as the person who is superior to others, but is conscious that even though I know something, there are many others who may know much more than me. So therefore, he keeps his level of his attitude respectful towards others, always open to learning from others, and willing to give respect to others. So this is the meaning of Vinaya in a normal context. So Vidya gives that. Learning, when somebody is really educated, then he understands that his knowledge is only limited. The more we learn, the more we become aware that there is a lot more to learn. Okay, that is real education. Vinayat yati patratam. That Vinaya, that humility or modesty, that through that humility, modesty, one develops what is called as patrita. Patrita means eligibility or qualification or worthiness. One becomes worthy of others' consideration in society. Eligibility. One becomes eligible for being given responsibilities. Only when one has such humility, one is aware of one's limitations and one's knowledge together, then one becomes eligible or capable of handling bigger responsibilities. Patritvat dhanam apnoti. So through handling responsibilities and doing jobs in this world, one acquires wealth. Dhanam apnoti. Dhanat dharmam. And through the acquisition of wealth, one is able to perform dharma. One is able to execute or take up different activities of dharma and perform dharma. Tataha sukham. And by the performance of dharma, happiness is achieved. Okay, so this shloka is actually telling us it's like a causal chain, how everything begins with learning or education. Education leads to humility. Through humility, one becomes eligible to take up responsibilities, and then one earns wealth. And through wealth, one is able to perform dharma, and therefore, and thereafter become happy. So this is a very, very oft-cited shloka. Learning gives humility. With humility, one achieves worthiness, capability, eligibility. Endowed with these, one acquires wealth. With wealth, one performs dharma, and thereafter there is happiness for that person. So this shloka primarily tells about, it is something that can be applied to anybody, in the general material context. This can be applied in a very general sense that education is what is the basis for one's happiness. Education gives us the platform through which we can do different things. And by doing different things, we are able to eventually achieve happiness in this world. Of course, as long as we follow dharma. In between comes dharma. It's important to see the mediation of dharma here. If dharma is not present, one acquires wealth, but there is no dharma or there is adharma, then that only causes misery. That will not cause happiness. But with wealth, if one performs dharma, then one achieves happiness. So this shloka is telling us about how we can be very happy in this material existence by acquiring knowledge. It can also be interpreted from the perspective of spiritual life. how spiritual knowledge actually gives real humility when one knows one is actually very insignificant. And through that, one develops the eligibility to acquire realization of God. Okay, that is wealth. God realization, realizing that I am a small, insignificant particle, a particle of dust at the feet of that supreme consciousness, that supreme being. So that realization is real wealth, and the sadhana to achieve that realization. So through that wealth, one is able to perform this dharma of seva, bhakti, right? And from that bhakti, one gets prema. Prema is the highest form of happiness possible for the jivatma. So this can also be interpreted from the spiritual angle in this way. So both interpretations are valid for this shloka, but in the original context in which the shloka comes, this is the Hitopadesha. This is actually talking about material happiness. Hitopadesha is not a book of spiritual knowledge, it's a book of ethics. It's Niti Shastra. So it's talking about ethics in the material existence and how one can be happy by being ethical, following moral values and living happily in this world. Now, dharma is the subject of the Bhagavad-gita, and I'm going to now show you how the Gita talks about dharma actually at two levels. Okay, I interpreted the previous shloka from two perspectives, the material perspective and the spiritual perspective. Similarly, the Bhagavad-gita also talks about dharma. The Bhagavad-gita's objective is to talk about parodharma, spiritual dharma, but it also talks about samanya dharma. So both the forms of dharma are present in the Bhagavad-gita, and the Bhagavad-gita actually tells us how we should rise beyond samanya dharma. So let me explain what I mean by these words. Samanya dharma is, as the word samanya means, a general dharma. That is the dharma that keeps this material existence stable, sustainable, happy, and a place where we can continue to live without much misery. So how is this executed? What is involved in this? Samanya dharma. Yeah, so let me also show the English translations that I have done. You can see here. For Samanya dharma, we can think of it as systems for ethical material living. And parodharma are systems of spiritual realization and liberation. Okay, so broadly, two types of dharma are present in the Bhagavad-gita and also the rest of our Shastra. Now, Samanya dharma is practiced in operation, you can say operationalized through, broadly speaking, two types of activities. The first type is called Nitya Naimittika Karma, and the second type is Kamya-karma. So what is the difference between them? Nitya Naimittika Karma refers to the daily activities that we are supposed to do, or the periodic activities that again we are supposed to do. Prescribed daily activities and prescribed periodic activities. And what is Kamya Karma? Kamya Karma refers to activities done for specific gains, specific material gains in this world. So let's now distinguish between them. Well, this is based on the Varnashrama system. Now, based on the Varnashrama, we have Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, and the Smriti, Dharma Shastra, gives us different types of duties. For example, a Brahmana is supposed to study, Adhyayana, and teach others. He's supposed to perform yajna for the benefit of this world. He's supposed to, take charity from others and also give charity to others in return and live a simple life. That is all part of his daily activities. Now, at the micro level, there are things specified like, for example, the person who is in the Grihastha ashrama, he is supposed to, let's say, before he has lunch, his meal of the day, he has to stand outside his house and call out, is there anybody who is hungry, who has not yet eaten? So first he calls out, and then if nobody responds, or if somebody responds, he first attends to them, and then he has his meal. Okay, this is part of dharma. So these are called daily activities. Every day, these things have to be done. Every day, what is known as the Panchamaha Yajna has to be done by the Grihastha. Okay, similarly for the Kshatriya, the king, or somebody in a Kshatriya role who is involved in administration, he has to attend to different types of decisions like settling some dispute or serving the need of somebody else, arranging for protection for someone. So these kind of activities are specified as the activities of a Kshatriya. Vaishyas have Go Seva, They have to ensure that the go are taken care of properly. The Shudras have to attend to all the other three Varnas and ensure that their activities are happening properly. Support system. So daily activities are prescribed. Similarly, periodic activities like, let's say, Shraddha. The Shraddha is performed, let's say, once a month or once a year for the benefit of forefathers, right? Similarly, activities like the different samskaras, Vivaha samskara, Upanayana samskara, they are done once in a lifetime, right? When a boy is born, a Brahmana boy is born at the age of about 2 or 3, is what is called as the Chaula ceremony is performed. Chaula means the hair is cut. Similarly, at the age of about 8 or 9, or maybe 12 or 13, his Upanayana samskara is performed, where he receives the Gayatri mantra. So these are called Naimittika karma. Naimittika means they are done for specific nimitta. When there is a particular cause, a particular reason, you do them. You don't do them every day, right? So Nitya Naimittika karma is the backbone of our dharma. That is how dharma is operationalized in practice. Okay, now then what is Kamya-karma? Now Kamya-karma is activities, special activities done when we want to target a particular type of gain. For example, we see in the Ramayana that Dasharatha, the king Dasharatha, did not have children, or he had only one child, a girl, and that girl was married off, right? But after that, he didn't have any sons. So he was very desperate. He said, if I don't have sons, then who will inherit? How will this dynasty continue? What will happen to this world? I mean, if I just die without any son, then how will this go forward? So he did a yajna, right? He did what is called as the Putra Kameshti yajna, and before that he did the Ashwamedha yajna. Ashwamedha followed by the Putra Kameshti yajna. And it was done under the expert guidance of Brahmanas. Rishyasringa was brought, and under his guidance, several Brahmanas were brought together. They chanted different mantras. Very, very elaborate description of the yajnas that he did, Ashwamedha, Putra Kameshti, etc., are given in the Ramayana itself, Valmiki Ramayana. So this kind of karma is called Kamya-karma. And today we will also speak about the story of Bali, the king Bali. We had mentioned King Bali in the last class. There was a question and we talked about that. Today I will go once again into that same story. And in the story of Bali, we see that Bali performed a Kamya-karma activity called the Vishwajit Yaga. Vishwajit was a yaga that he performed to become very powerful. To gain power, he wanted to conquer the entire universe and bring it under his control, right? So he performed that yaga and he got that power. He got enormous power. So that's another example of Kamya-karma. So Kamya-karma are activities done in accordance with the Shastra. That's what makes them come under Dharma. If they are not done in accordance with Shastra, then they are no longer Dharma. They become Adharma. So because they are done as specified by the Shastra, they are Dharma, and therefore there is no pap in doing them. They give you power, they give you that material gain that you are looking for. So other types of material gain that people may be looking for are, for example, just wealth. Different types of wealth. In earlier times, wealth did not mean only money, but things like, a lot of cattle, go. So having thousands of cows is one form of wealth. Having land on which you can do different activities like farming, having a big house, or having wives, multiple wives. So these are considered different forms of wealth, or having a beautiful wife. So this kinds of wealth people look for. This is called Kamya-karma. Okay. Now what happens when we do this kind of karma? From the Nitya Naimittika karma, we gain what is called as dharma. Means that word dharma is used. Basically, it refers to the punya that we get, the material merit, the credit. But by doing Nitya Naimittika karma, we are actually performing Samanya Dharma, the basic form of Samanya Dharma. And by doing that, we earn punya, right? We avoid papa. If we don't do the Nitya Naimittika karma, for example, if a Brahmana who is supposed to chant Gayatri mantra every day after his Sandhya, after his Upanayanam has happened, if he doesn't do it in the proper way, then there is pap in that. He's supposed to do it every day, right? And he has to then do parihar to avoid or overcome that pap. So dharma, Nitya Naimittika karma, actually leads us to what is called as punya. So what about Kamya karma? Kamya karma gives us what are called as artha and kama, right? So what do all these refer to? Dharma is basically about accruing punya, but artha and kama are, like I just said, special forms of wealth, possessions, and even sensual pleasure. Okay, there are some shastra like the Kama Sutra dedicated towards how to enjoy the senses, indulge in sensual pleasures. So dharma, artha, and kama, these are considered as purusharthas. They are three of the four purusharthas that are mentioned in that purushartha chatushtayam, right? Four purusharthas of mankind, we say. So dharma, artha, and kama, these are obtained by the performance of samanya dharma. So either we attain punya, by which, what does punya give us? Punya gives us better happiness in the future births. By acquiring punya, we may not get specific forms of wealth in the present life, but in future we are born in a higher state of existence, like in the loka of the devas, where the devas stay. We may be born among them, or we are born in a place where there are very saintly people living, where there is much more happiness than in this world. So punya helps us to acquire better states of existence. Whereas artha and kama, they help us to get short-term happiness in this present birth itself. And that is when we are not able to, it is done when the urge is very strong. For example, somebody has a very strong urge to acquire, let's say, a lot of land, okay, and have go seva. He wants to show that I have got status, I have so much land with me. He's very desirous. In the case of Dasharatha, he wanted to have a son. Absolutely, he can't avoid it. He has to have it in this life. He's not thinking in terms of punya there. He's thinking in terms of that specific material return. Right? So artha and kama are focused towards short-term, immediate results. Right? Now, dharma or punya also is short-term, as we will see when we go forward, in comparison to what parodharma is going to give us. Even that punya is actually only short-term, right? But it's longer-term compared to the artha and kama. So what is parodharma? Now, parodharma is about rejecting material happiness. What samanya dharma gives us is material happiness. Materially, we are happy. We are going to have a good life, right? But parodharma says that good life is the enemy of your permanent great life, right? They say good is the enemy of the great. Therefore, it asks us to overcome the happiness of material existence so that we can get a much higher form of happiness, which is eternal. So spiritual realization leads to what is called as liberation from material existence. So how is that achieved? It's operationalized through yoga. Just like Nitya Naimittika Karma and Kamya-karma gives material happiness, yoga is the path for spiritual happiness. Now in the Bhagavad-gita, very broadly speaking, there are two paths of yoga. I have mentioned this earlier also. The first path, I'm calling it as Karma Jnana Yoga, because Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga are both part of the same path. And the second path is distinct from that. It's called Bhakti Yoga. Now, in the path of Karma Jnana also, where Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga are involved, there also Bhakti is required for eventually obtaining liberation, Mukti. Without Bhakti, Mukti is not possible. But in the path of Bhakti Yoga, right from the beginning, the person does only Bhakti. And therefore, they don't have to think of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga as separate elements of their path. Bhakti takes care of all of them. Bhakti subsumes all of them by itself. So what do these things lead to? Just give me a moment. Yeah. Now, both Karma Jnana Yoga as well as Bhakti Yoga, they lead to two results, moksha and prema. So normally in the Chatushtayam, in the Purushartha Chatushtayam, only moksha is mentioned. Prema is not mentioned. Prema is a much higher goal than moksha. Prema means pure love. Love that is completely unadulterated and completely devoid of selfishness. Love only when you think of the welfare, in the condition when the person who is offering that love is only thinking of the welfare of the person who is being loved, not of himself, not what I will get in return, no reciprocation expected. So that kind of love is called prema, and that is possible only when one has that level of spiritual maturity. And it's possible by the kripa of bhakti, by the kripa of Bhagavan. Right? Otherwise, it's not possible. It's not possible to imagine that love. It doesn't come by imagination. It comes only by kripa. So moksha is the one that is easier to understand. Moksha means not taking birth again. Literally, that's a simple understanding of moksha, that one does not have a material birth again because one discovers one's spiritual form and one exists spiritually after that. One has an eternal existence. One doesn't become void. One becomes spiritually conscious. One's consciousness becomes full. And one then gets rid of future material birth forever. Okay, that is moksha. And prema is in a state when one is actually in moksha. Prema subsume moksha. Means if one has prema, then automatically one also has moksha. And in that state, the goal of moksha looks very, very insignificant, because the happiness of prema is much, much higher than the happiness of only moksha without prema. So we will talk about these things in more detail in later chapters in the Bhagavad-gita. But this presentation of this ontology here was only to show you a map where the different things that we are talking about, how do they relate with each other, to give you a kind of a holistic picture of the different things that we talk about. Just give me a moment. Now, before I go forward, let me just mention one more thing, that here, karma jnana yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, that path is basically varnashrama based. Means that it is through our varnashrama duties that one actually executes that path of yoga also. And slowly one overcomes the need to perform those duties. One achieves a state where one says that it is said that one can give up those prescribed duties and then do only yoga. Okay, but it begins by continuing to do our prescribed duties and not giving them up. That is so the path of karma jnana yoga is varnashrama based, whereas the path of bhakti yoga is actually non-varnashrama based. One can give up one's varnashrama duties and completely surrender to Sri Bhagavan through his instructions, to the Guru, and say that I will only do the activities of bhakti and not any of my varnashrama prescribed duties and so on. Okay, again, these things also I will elaborate as we go forward and talk about bhakti in more detail. So with this overall holistic picture, I will go forward. Just give me 1 second. Yes. Now, yeah, so let's now connect to what we have been learning in the Gita all along. So in chapter 4 began by Sri Bhagavan saying that I gave this knowledge to Vivaswan, and then he gave it to Manu, and Manu gave it to Ikshvaku. But over time, this was lost. So I come, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata, abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam shajamyaham. So he points out that he comes when there is a decline of dharma, paritranaya sadhunam, to protect the sadhus, vinashaya cha dushkritam, to destroy the wicked people, dharma samsthapanarthaya, to re-establish dharma, sambhavami yuge yuge. This was in the 8th shloka of the 4th chapter. And then he points out that my coming here is not normal, like that of a normal baby, normal human baby, because I am divine. And all my activities are divine. And one who understands this, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yovetti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti. So Arjuna, the 9th shloka. And then he says that actually whatever I'm telling you now is not new. I have told this earlier, and earlier people also practiced it. They took my shelter, and by taking my shelter, they attained my nature, and they attained my pure love and directly experienced me. And they also were tolerant. The path of bhakti requires you to tolerate what others say, because they will say that you are giving up your varnashrama duties. Or in today's society, in the Kali Yuga, where there is no varnashrama also, people will say that you are giving up normal things. You're not going and watching a movie. You're sitting and doing japa. You're doing kirtana. All this looks very awkward. What has happened to you? Something is wrong with you. You're given up eating meat. You're eating pure vegetarian food. Something seems strange with you. So this kind of comments by others, one learns to tolerate them. So he says people tolerated this. Vita raga bhaya krodha means without anger towards them. There's no anger. You don't feel angry. You give up anger. You give up attachment, and then you only try to practice love. Okay, that is the path of bhakti. So after saying this, in the 11th shloka, which we saw in the last session, he says that, well, more generally speaking, okay, now I've spoken about bhakti. In the 10th shloka, he's spoken about bhakti, but more generally speaking, I actually am open to anybody. Anybody can approach me, but they should keep in mind that I will reciprocate with them in the manner in which they approach me, with whatever orientation they approach me. In that, according to that orientation, I also reciprocate. It's not that I reciprocate in the same way with anybody who comes to me. So he makes it very clear that ye yatha mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham mama vartma anuvartante manushyaha partha sarvatha. Because I am everything, ultimately everything is my path only. It's some way or the other people are connecting to me, whichever path they take. But I reciprocate according to that path, according to that orientation. They should keep that in mind. So having said this, now Sri Bhagavan goes into talking about Kamya-karma. He says what to do. Some people, they are attached to their Kamya-karma and they take that path. So in the 12th shloka, he is referring to the Kamya-karma that people do. Okay, we just now understood what Kamya-karma is. So he says, Kangshantaha karmanam siddhim yajante iha devataha kripram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja. So Kangshantaha means people who are actually hankering. Kangsha. Kangsha means expectation, or Akanksha, hankering. Kangshantaha, people who are hankering, karmanam siddhim, the success that comes, or the results, the gains which come from the karma, karmanam siddhi. Yajante iha devataha. They worship different types of devatas. Okay, different types of devatas give different types of fruits. Among those devatas is also Vishnu. Vishnu is also included under devatas from the perspective of people. Okay, Kshipram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja. Kshipram means very quickly in this world of human beings. Manushe loke, in this world of human beings, siddhir bhavati karmaja. Success is achieved. Okay, so he's trying to basically point out that material efforts for material gains, specific targets, like I want a son, I want a house, all these things are small. They can be easily achieved by doing some worship of some devata, some yaga, some yajna. These are easily achieved, right? So let's see what he is trying to say. Hankering for the material results of their karma, people worship the devatas, the divine beings. In this world of human beings, the results of karma are obtained rather quickly. So if we analyze this shloka a little deeper, so he's basically contrasting with the earlier path of bhakti that he had touched upon in the 9th and 10th shlokas. There he had talked about understanding him requires, understand him, one requires the path of bhakti. So therefore he had said that, by taking my shelter, you are able to achieve me. So that is confirmed also by another shloka in the Gita. In many places in the Gita this comes, but one prominent shloka where this point comes is in the 18th chapter, towards the end, when he's going towards the conclusion. Again, he brings up bhakti there. In the 55th shloka, he says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschashmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato gyatma vishateta anantaram. Says only by bhakti one knows me exactly as I am. Bhaktya mam abhijanati, not just janati. Abhijanati means knows me thoroughly. And then he explains that. Abhijanati means what? Yavan yaschasmi tattvataha. The way I am. Yavan yaschasmi means exactly how I am, who I am, my nature, what I like, what I don't like. To understand that, it's possible only by bhakti. And then he says, Tato mam tattvato gyatva vishate tad anantaram. So only when one knows me like that, thoroughly, okay, not just as some energy, some superpower, not some vague way, but thoroughly knowing me as I am, with all my qualities, my activities, everything, then he comes into me. Vishate tad anantaram. He comes and becomes a part of my entourage, right? Vishate tad anantaram. Vishate means actually literally means enters. So here it means that he becomes a part of Sri Bhagavan's community, becomes his associate, right? So this the shloka sort of resonates with the 4.9 and 4.10. The 9th and 10th shloka of 4th chapter are in sync with the 18th chapter 55th shloka. So in 4.11, he has pointed out that not everybody is inclined towards bhakti. So he's generally saying that I reciprocate according to the way they approach me. And now he is contrasting and saying that, okay, one way in which people approach me is by looking for materialistic rewards. And these are the low-hanging fruits. These are things which are easily available to people. They can acquire them without much, the kind of chitta shuddhi, the kind of purification of the consciousness that my bhakti demands. They don't have to worry so much. They can retain their ahantara. They have to perform some vratas and so on. But by doing those things, they will get what they want. So the majority of the Veda actually says this. This is something that many people don't realize because they think that Veda chanting means spiritual, right? But actually, a lot of what the Veda says is not spiritual. It is material. It is basically either Nitya Naimitika Karma or it is Kamya-karma. It is basically Samanya Dharma only. So we just mentioned that Kamya-karma is practiced with different types of yajnas. And Sri Bhagavan, he repeatedly in the Bhagavad-gita, the Bhagavad-gita is not a book of Samanya Dharma. Samanya Dharma is mentioned in the Bhagavad-gita as a Purva Paksha. Okay, so I was telling also in an earlier session how our Shastra, especially the philosophical Shastra, like the Upanishad, the Gita, even Ramayana, portions of Bhagavatam, they are structured in a way where the opposite view, which is called Purva Paksha, is also presented. Sometimes the Purva Paksha is presented first, and then the refutation of that, which is called Siddhanta, which is what the author wants to tell us, that this is what is the higher conclusion. This is my conclusion. So in the Bhagavad-gita, the Siddhanta is parodharma, the dharma which points towards moksha and prema. So to give parodharma and show the value of parodharma, Sri Bhagavan contrasts this with samanya dharma, particularly Kamya-karma, the Kamya-karma aspect of samanya dharma. Because Kamya-karma is not a part of karma yoga also. Nitya Naimittika karma is a part of karma yoga, jnana yoga. But Kamya-karma is not a part of that also. So Kamya-karma is especially contrasted against. So in many places in the Gita, the Bhagavan asks us to give up that Kamya-karma. He speaks about that karma which is present in the Veda. So those who are enamored with the Veda, he tries to remove that. He tries to remove that awe they have for the Veda. So I'm going to show you a few places. I'll quickly go through them. In the chapter 2, in second chapter, we have been through this earlier. He says, Yamimam pushpitam vacham pravadantya vipaschitaha vedavadaratav partha nanyadasti iti vadinaha. Those who are too attached to the Veda, they are experts in the Veda and they tell people, they are able to tell people how to achieve what they want. But Sri Bhagavan says they are pushpitam vacham, meaning they are flowery words. Vedas give us flowery words. You do this, you will get that. You do something else, you will get something else. So, and these people who are experts in the Veda and they're able to get people what they want by guiding them, they said there is nothing higher than the Veda. The Veda is the highest. Kamatmanaha swargaparaha janma karma phalapradam kriya vishesha bahulam bhogeshwarya gatim prati bhogeshwarya prasaktanam taya apahrita chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhihi samadhavna vidiyate. So he says that people who are then carried away by these words of the Veda, they follow whatever they say, and swarga paraha, they try to attain swarga, they get different types of material results from that, and their consciousness is completely stolen away. Apahartam means stolen away. It is dragged away, or grabbed away, or carried away. In English we say carried away. They're carried away by the words of the Veda. And such people, vyavasayatmika buddhi, means buddhi which is one-pointed, vyavasayatmika, which is single-focused towards moksha, samadhi. In samadhi, there's nothing called samadhi for them because, they get one thing, then they look for the next thing. It's just like in today's world. Nobody is ever happy with the material wealth that they get, right? People are wealthy. But the wealthier they are not likely to be more happy because they always look for the next thing, right? If you have a car of, let's say, the D segment car, you want the E segment car. And then you want a much bigger car than the E segment car also. You want a limousine, right? It doesn't look like that is the ultimate thing that you can get because always something higher to be got, right? If you have become a minister, then you want to become the prime minister. So it's always, so vyavasayatmika buddhi means a buddhi which says that, okay, this is the highest. My mind is fixed on this. that situation is called samadhi, and that samadhi never happens for them. Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha. Why is it so? Because Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha, Nistraigunya Bhavartuna, Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto, Niryogakhema Atmavan. Sri Bhagavan concludes by saying these 4 shlokas that the Veda are Traigunya Vishayaha. They are only talking about this material existence, which is made up of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. There's nothing higher. But Arjuna, you become Nistraigunya. Please go above them. Okay, reject those 3 gunas and go above them. And he says, Nirdvandva, become free from Dvandva. Dvandva means that's the quality of this material existence where we say good and bad, hot and cold. So Dvandva Moha, Nitya Sattvasto, become a Nitya Sattva, means become an eternal being and become like my devotees, my bhaktas who are eternal. Niryoga Kshema, become free from the consideration of yoga and kshema. Yoga Kshema means, like I was telling last time, Alabdhalabho yoga tasya rakshanam kshema. That's how it's defined. Means not having or getting what you don't have is called yoga, right? And protecting what you already have is called kshema. So he says this is the predominant consciousness in the material world, always worried about what I don't have and trying to get that, and trying to protect what I already have with a lot of security measures and so on. So become free from that thinking. Niryoga kshema. Atmavan means focus on the self. Think about your real self, the Jivatma. So he says, Yavan artha udapane sarvataha samplutodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanataha. So he says the whole Veda is like a small well. Now, whatever purposes a well can serve, that a big ocean can serve or a huge lake can serve. So he says, Yavan artha udapane sarvataha samplutodake. Udapana, well. So in the earlier times in our Vedic, in our Samskriti, people depended heavily on wells. Even today we depend on wells, but we are not so conscious of that because we have bore wells, or even if we have an open well, the water comes to us in a tap, right? Eventually goes to the overhead tank and it comes to us in a tap. So we are not conscious of the water coming from a well, right? But earlier people used to go to the well, which is physically present. There was no taps. So people would draw water from there and then they would use it for all their activities, beginning with, say, brushing teeth, taking bath, going for evacuation, or puja, water for cooking. Everything would be through wells. And like Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti points out in his commentary that there are multiple wells. From the same well, you can't do everything. For example, if you're using water for bathing from a particular well, then you won't want to use the same water for, let us say, doing puja or for cooking. So you would have another well for that purpose. So well which is used for, say, cleaning yourself will not be used for doing abhishek for the deity in your house, for doing puja, right? That's a pure activity. So you would have a different well which is preserved, which is kept pure for only for that purpose. So there are different wells which serve different purposes. But when you go to a large ocean or a river or a lake, which is much, much bigger than a well, you don't discriminate like that. The same water is taken for everything. It serves, like you go to the river Ganga or any Ganga, I mean, a river which is near your house is also used. The term Ganga is used for that also in India, right? Ganga means, the word Ganga evokes purity in your mind. So you go to the Ganga near your house and then you draw water from there and use it for all the purposes. So he's trying to, this shloka, in this shloka, Sri Bhagavan is saying that think of the Shastra which will give you that Ganga, means it will serve all purposes, and that is spiritual happiness or parodharma. Parodharma is something that subsumes all the happiness that you can get with samanya dharma. You don't need to do one yajna for this, one yajna for that, one yajna for something else. The only one yajna that you do for parodharma, which is, let's say, bhakti, for example, by doing bhakti, you get everything. The happiness that you get there far surpasses the happiness that you can get by small material goals. Okay, so that's what he's trying to point out here in this shloka. So he says, Durena hi avaram karma buddhi yogat dhananjaya buddhav sharanam anvicha kripanaha phalahetavaha. He's trying to say that don't look for Kamya-karma, take shelter of buddhi yoga. In this context, you can interpret this as speaking about karma yoga or about bhakti yoga. Buddhi yoga word is used in the Bhagavad-gita in both ways. And he says, take shelter of that buddhi yoga by which Avaram karma means inferior karma, inferior ordinary activities will be given up. Yadate moha kalilam buddhir vyatitarishyati tada gantasi nirvedam shlokavyasya shukapyata. When your intelligence goes beyond the moha kalila, moha means delusion, confusion. Kalilam means a dense forest, a dense accumulation of that confusion. When it goes beyond that, he's referring to Veda like that. The Veda is actually moha kalila. Is when your mind or when your buddhi intelligence goes above that, then you will achieve a state called as nirveda, and you will become indifferent to the Veda, right? So can you believe it? I mean, the Veda is glorified, right? Veda is considered as the supreme. It is considered as a form of Vishnu himself. But here, Vishnu himself is condemning that and saying you have to go beyond that. Okay, when I say condemning, I'm not saying that he's saying there is something wrong with the Veda. No, the Veda has a particular purpose. And it is pure. Veda is very pure. It's got a particular purpose, and it serves that purpose very well. And that is the purpose of Samanya Dharma. So when he is condemning it, he is not saying that it's sinful to do the Veda. No, he's not saying that. He's only saying that there is something higher than that. And doing something good often is the enemy of the great, we say, right? Therefore, aim for that which is great. And that is parodharma. So like this, there are shlokas in the 7th chapter also. Kamaistaiste hritadhyanaha prapadyante anya devataha tam tam niyamamasthaya prakrutya niyatastvaya. So people whose hearts or minds have been drawn by different types of desires, they go and take shelter of different devatas, and they follow the niyama, they follow the different procedures to worship those devatas, and they acquire, they take those natures. Yo yam yam tanum bhaktaha shraddhayarchitam ichchati tasya tasya chalam shraddham tam eva vidadhamyaham. Okay, whichever deity that people want to worship, let's say some person wants to worship some deity, somebody else wants to worship a different deity. Now they worship that deity with so much devotion, bhakta shraddhaya, with so much shraddha. But they should know that tasya achalam shraddham, that achala means that fixed faith, that strong, stable faith in that deity is given by me only. Tameva vidadhamyaham. Sataya shraddhaya yuktaha tasya radhanalihate labhate cha tataha kaman mayeva vihitan hita. So with that shraddha which I have given, that person worships that deity. But eventually he gets the benefits, whatever he is worshipping the deity for, he gets that. But actually that is given by me only. He says, Mayeva vihitan hitan. Antavattu phalam tesham tad bhavati alpamedhatam devan devayajo yanti mad bhaktaha yanti namati. So he sums it up now. He's tying up this 3 shlokas in the 4th one by saying that, see, whatever they are getting from those devatas, they're worshipping those devatas, they are antavat, means they have an end, they are short term. Like in English we say short term versus long term, right? So antavat means that it has an end, immediate end. Antavattu phalam tesham tad bhavati alpamedhasam. So alpamedha means the intelligence is low. Low intelligent people with low intelligence worship these devatas. Devan devayajo yanti. Eventually, these people go to those devatas, wherever those devatas are. But mat bhaktaha yanti mamati. Those who worship me, they will come to me. Okay, again, this resonates with the shloka, ye yatha mam prapadyante tan tateva vajamyaha. Those who worship me with that orientation, they will come to me. But if they worship me through worshipping other devatas, then I will send them to those devatas. So I reciprocate in that manner. In the 9th chapter, he says, Traividya mam somapa putapapa yajya ishtva swargatim prapatarthayante te punyamasadhya surendra lokam ashnanti divyan vivideva bhogan. That is, he says, Traividya. See, this Veda is also called the parodharma, because in one earlier classification, the Veda was spoken about in terms of only 3 Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, and Sama Veda. Atharva Veda was not included in them. Right? So this 3-fold classification of Veda together was called as Tridharma or Trividya. Trividya means threefold knowledge system. So predominantly Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, they contain different types of Kamya-karma apart from Nitya-karma. So he says people who follow this, they become free from all their past papa, they perform different types of yajna, and they try to attain different types of punya, they try to attain different types of bhoga and so on. They stetam bhuktva swargalokam. So even those who go to Swarga, you see earlier, just like today we say going to America, right? In India, people in India think that going to the West or going to a developed country and living there, enjoying the wealth there, enjoying the better quality of life is the goal of life, is a superior goal of life, right? So earlier, people, the India was the place where prosperity was the most, right? India was the West for those people. They used to come from there looking for India. That's how the invasions happened in India. India was the wealthy country. So what did Indians then aspire for? The Indians, people who followed the Veda, they aspired for Swarga, being born in Swarga. But what happens once you go to Swarga? Does it mean that you are going to remain eternally in Swarga? This shloka says no. Etam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam sine punya martyalokam nisanti. Evam parodharma manuprapannaha gatagatam kamakamaha labante. So these people who are actually aspiring for that Swarga, well, they enjoy the Swarga for some time, no doubt about that. But Kshine Punya, when that Punya gets over, that Punya is a limited account, right? So when that account is depleted, then Martya Lokam Visham. They again come back to this Bhuloka. This Bhuloka is also called as Martya Loka. So Evam Trai-dharma, those who have taken shelter of this Trai-dharma, this dharma of Nitya Naimittika and Kamya-karma, they go back and forth. They come back here, again they will do punya, and again they will go to Swarga Loka. And this is what happens. This is what happens to them. So then he says, after saying these two shlokas, the third shloka is saying, Ananya astintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate, tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. This shloka again is a very oft-cited shloka in the Bhagavad-gita, where he is contrasting the path of Kamya-karma with the path of bhakti. He says, those who are always thinking about me and who are endeavoring to come to me, such people, I take care of the yogakshema. Yogakshemam vahamyaham. Whatever they require and to protect whatever they already have, I will provide that. This is the invisible presence of Sri Bhagavan in the life of even a sadhaka, a person who begins bhakti. Right from the beginning of the path of bhakti, Sri Bhagavan's presence happens in his life and he starts experiencing this. He starts experiencing the yogakshema. So Sri Bhagavan takes care of it, takes care of his needs so that he doesn't have to expend energy, expend effort, get distracted in trying to acquire and keep himself safe and secure. His safety, security, his provision of all his requirements is taken care of by Sri Bhagavan. Yepi anya devata bhaktaha yajante shraddhayanvitaha tepi mameva kaunteye yajante avidipurvakam. So by worshipping different devatas, you may think that, I can get, some people have this lottery kind of thinking that if I think only of Vishnu, what if, when I require something, Vishnu doesn't come to me or Sri Bhagavan doesn't come to me? How can I do that? Instead, let me do, some worship for all the devatas so that at least one of them will come and help me when I require that help, right? So Monday I will do for this deity, Hanuman. For Tuesday I will do some other deity. Wednesday I will do some other deity. So every day of the week, or at least 4 or 5 days in a week, one deity is attached. And so 4 or 5 different deities by rotation you worship, and so you keep all of them happy. It's like the lottery. The people take lottery, at least one of those will flip. That kind of thinking. So he says, people who worship Devata, of course, not everybody thinks like that. There are some people who are devoted to only one deity, like, for example, Durga or Ganesha. So they may have one particular deity only whom they will worship as the Ishta Devata. That's a little better because then they are more faithful. They are loyal to one deity. That's considered a bigger virtue than this multiple deity system. But even there he says, Sri Bhagavan points out, Yepi anya devata bhaktaha yajante shraddhayanvitaha. Teapi mameva kaunteya. Actually, they are only worshipping me. Because like he said earlier, I am the one who is giving all the results. I am the one who is giving the faith in that deity, and I'm also the one who is giving the results. So then if you ask me, okay, in that case, what is wrong with worshipping another deity? Because ultimately they are worshipping you only. But he's saying, yajanti avidhi purvakam. They're doing it, but they're doing it wrongly. Avidhi purvakam. Means it's like saying, touching the nose indirectly. If you can touch your nose like this, then why take your hand around your head and touch your nose? Directly worship me.
So if you know that you are worshipping me only, then why don't you directly worship me? Why are you going around? Why are you going through another deity? Don't do that. Okay, so yajanti abhidhi purvakam. So basically he's saying that Kamya-karma is inferior. Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhirevata natu mam abhijananti tatvena ataha charantite. So not knowing this, it's because people don't know that I am the supreme, the source of everything, and the ultimate destination. Whatever you're offering to that deity ultimately is coming to me. There's also a shloka somewhere which says Sarvadeva Namaskaram Keshavam Pratigachati. Right? So everything that we offer to some other deity with respect ultimately goes to only Keshava. So if you don't know this, fine. But what happens is this lack of knowledge keeps you inside material existence. If you know that it is me who is giving all this, then you become attracted to me and you start coming towards me. Then there is an opportunity for you to break out of this material existence. Right? That's the whole thing that he's pointing to. So in this way, in the Gita, repeatedly, this comes again and again. It's not just in the 4th chapter, 12th shloka. The conclusion is here. Yanti deva vrata devan, pitrun yanti pitruvataha, bhutani yanti bhutejyaha, yanti madhyajino pima. So by worshipping different devas, you go to the planets of those devas, or the existence of those devas. Pitrun, by worshipping forefathers, you go to the places where the forefathers reside. By worshipping ghosts and spirits, bhutani yanti bhutejyaha, you will be born among them. But if you worship me, then you will come to me. You will be born in the place where I reside. Okay, so in this way, the contrast is made. So I cited the shlokas from the other chapters because we will come to them much later. 2nd chapter we already have completed. 7th and 9th chapter will come after many more weeks. So I'm just showing you how the Gita is consistent internally. It says the same things in different places, in different words, but the point made is the same. So I want to quickly recount this story. We touched upon the story in the last week's class as well. And here I want to show you how Bali begins the story of Bali Maharaj in the 8th skanda, Ashtama skanda of Bhagavatam. It starts with Bali as a materialist, but the story ends with Bali as a bhakta. It shows how, by the kripa of a bhakta, his own grandfather, Bali gets bhakti. And Sri Vamana, Vishnu comes in the form of Vamana to enable that process. Out of his compassion, he enables that process of the bhakti blooming inside the consciousness of Bali Maharaj. So how does that happen? So the story begins with the 14th chapter. In the 14th chapter of the Ashtama Skanda, which has 11 slokas, the 14th chapter describes the universal arrangement. Okay, there's no Bali mentioned here, but the background is set here. The universe, how this universe in which we are living, its administration is in the hands of, it begins with Brahma at the top, and Brahma's son Manu. Manu is responsible for setting the different laws. He's the lawmaker. He sets the ethical codes of conduct. And through Manu's administration, a lot of things are set into motion in this universe. And among the devas, the king is Indra. The word Indra itself means king, actually. His name, the current Indra's name is Purandara. Indra is not his name. Indra is the post. Indra means king. So Manu, Indra, etc. are the major personalities in the administration of this universe. And that's described in the 14th chapter of the Ashtama Skanda. Then in the 15th chapter, Bali comes into the picture, and Bali's Vishwajit Yaga is described. How Bali was a glorious personality among the Asura kings. He was an Asura. He's born in among the Asuras, and he also happens to be the grandson of Prahlada. So he performs a major yaga called the Vishwajit Yaga. Vishwajit Yaga allows in Vishwajit, you can see the word Vishwajit means conquering of the Vishwa, universe, right? Conquering the universe. So this Vishwajit Yaga empowers that king, if he performs it successfully, to actually become so powerful that he can conquer the universe. He can become the supreme ruler of this universe. So Bali performs this Vishwajit Yaga, and he then takes his army, he gets that power. The Brahmanas who are actually officiating that yaga, they're actually the sons or the descendants of Bhrigu, the great sage Bhrigu, uh, who is also an ancestor of Shukracharya, Bali's guru, right? So they are actually officiating the yaga, and Bali is blessed by them because they are very happy with the way in which he performed that yaga, Kamya-karma. So we saw how, Vidya dadati vinayam vinayat yati patratam patritva dhanam apnoti dhanat dharmam tata sukam. So Bali is an example of that shloka from a materialistic point of view, how through his learning, whatever learning he has got earlier, he performs this kamya karma, he acquires that qualification with his humility, with respect for the Brahmanas, he performs his yaga, and then he is eligible now. So with that power, he goes about, and the first place that he goes is the Swarga, where Indra is ruling, and just by looking at him, looking at his army and looking at him, the Devas, they leave Swarga. They take the advice of their Guru Brihaspati, and there is no war. They don't fight with him, but he doesn't have to fight with them. He just has to go and show himself there. And the moment he shows up, they decide that we cannot fight with him, and they leave Swarga and go away. Of course, after leaving Swarga, they go to Brahma and they go to Vishnu and they pray to them that please help us. And then Vishnu agrees to help them. And in the meantime, Indra's mother is Aditi. She is the wife of Kashyapa. Kashyapa also is an ancestor of Bali, right? So Kashyapa is an ancestor both for Indra as well as for Bali through his two different wives. Through Aditi, Indra is born, and through Diti, Hiranyakashipu is born, and Hiranyakashipu's son is Prahlad, Prahlad's son is Virochana, and Virochana's son is Bali. Bali is the great grandson of Kashyapa. So I would say, sorry, great grandson of Kashyapa, right? So Kashyapa's wife Aditi, now mother of Indra, she actually now goes to Kashyapa and asks for help. And Kashyapa advises her in what is called as the parodharma, which again you can say is another form of Kamya-karma, because she's aiming for a son, or actually she's aiming for not a son, she's aiming for Vishnu's help. She wants Vishnu's help to get rid of the asuras from Swarga and help her son to come back, put her son back in his seat. Right? So Kashyapa instructs her in the payovrata. The payovrata involves, payas means milk, right? So she has to drink only milk, consume only milk for a fortnight, and do a lot of other types of penance. It's very austere. A lot of austerity has to be performed, and she performs that for the welfare of her son. And when she does that, Vishnu comes to her, and Vishnu asks her, what do you want and everything, and she explains, and Vishnu then says, I'm very happy with the vrata that you have incurred, and I will do it in this manner. He says that now it's not just easy, it's not straightforward, because Bali has earned a lot of punya. Bali has actually pleased the Brahmanas, and the Brahmanas have blessed him with so much power, and I can't just remove his power like that. I won't do it. I mean, although he can if he wants to, but he won't do that because he won't interfere with the way in which dharma works. He's a person who actually protects and sustains dharma. So as per the principles of dharma, Bali has earned it. Bali has earned that power. And because he has earned that power, Vishnu will not go and just remove it like that. He won't snatch it away. Right? So he will say that, let me now do something by which, although he has done wrong. So what Bali has done is wrong. Bali has actually gone and threatened Indra. He's not supposed to do that, right? That goes against dharma. Dharma means that this universe is meant to be stable. Now, when multiple people are blessed with the rewards of dharma, it's their free will how they use it. Now, Bali is sort of misusing it. He's gone there, he's got the authority to do that, but he's using the authority in a wrong way. So he has gone and removed Indra from what Indra is supposed to do, from his legally valid position. So Vishnu says that, okay, he has done wrong. I can't just snatch him away from there, but I can actually trick him in some way. So he says, now I'll do something by which I will not break any principle of dharma, and I will trick this guy. And at the same time, I'll bless him, right? So what Vishnu does is he appears as Vamana. And this chapter is very beautiful, the chapter 18, where the birth of Vishnu as Vamana is described. You should go and read this chapter on the internet. You can find the translation of these shlokas, where how Vishnu appears first in the mind of Kashyapa. That is in the 17th chapter, and then he goes from there, from the mind of Kashyapa into the mind of Aditi, and then into her womb, and eventually appears as Vamana. Okay? His birth is not like a normal human baby. Again, if you see this 18th chapter, it's just like the birth of Krishna from the womb of Devaki is described. He just manifests outside. Okay? He doesn't come out of a particular part of her body. He just manifests outside as a small form of Vishnu, the four-handed Vishnu, and then transforms from that four-handed form. He transforms into the form of a small boy almost instantaneously. Right? He doesn't. It's not like, he slowly grows from the baby. He becomes slightly bigger, 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 like a human baby does. And then after about 5 or 6 years, he becomes a small child. No, nothing like that. In just a few moments, as they are watching that, the people around there are all watching the small Vishnu lying there. And after some time, after they take in that sight, after he's given them enough time to take in that sight, he suddenly transforms himself into the form of a small dwarf boy, right? With the Vamana. And he starts walking from there. He just starts walking immediately, and he starts going towards the place where Bali is performing those yagas. Right now, Bali is now busy performing the Ashwamedha yaga. So it is said that if you want to become Indra legally, the legal way to become Indra for a king is not to do what Bali did. Go stand outside his palace and threaten him. Not like that, but to perform Ashwamedha yaga. You have to perform 100 Ashwamedha yagas. So once you do that, you are automatically eligible to become the Indra. After the current Indra's term is over, you become the next Indra, or your name is the next in the list after all the previous people have earned that position. So Bali is now doing that. He's busy performing one of the Ashwamedha yagas, and Vamana reaches there. That is in the 18th chapter. In the 19th chapter, Bali, is shown to be very, very kind towards this Vamana. Bali does not realize that this is Vishnu. He thinks of him as just another Brahmana, and he knows that worshipping the Brahmana is the way to get punya and the way to become more happy. Happiness comes through serving the Brahmanas. So he worships this little Brahmana who has come here, and then with all his magnanimity, he says that you can take whatever you like. Ask me whatever you want, and I'll give it to you. Everything belongs to me. Right? His ego. You can see his ahankara talking there. And Vamana is there to trick him, right? So Vamana says, I will give you 3 steps. I mean, I only seek 3 steps. I don't need anything else. 3 steps of land. Just give me that much. I'm only a small Brahmana. I don't have any desires and so on. So initially, Bali laughs at him. Bali says that you're a fool. He literally calls him a fool in this chapter, 19th chapter. He says that you're just a small kid, because he also looks like a kid there. Just a small kid. You don't know what you're saying. There is so much you can take from me, and there's so much you can be happy with. And Vamana replies very intelligently. He says that nothing in this world can make somebody permanently happy. So he speaks philosophically. He says that everything is temporary. So what will I do with all the horses and gold and everything? Just give me 3 steps of land as a matter of formality, because you have to offer something to a Brahmana. So only for that purpose, I will accept something, and give me 3 steps of land. So at that point of time, Bali says, okay, if you don't want anything else, what can I do? I can't change your mind. You're a kid and you will remain a kid. So take it. But you will regret later. Something like that, he says. At that time, Shukracharya comes in and tells him that, look, this is Vishnu. He's going to trick you. And this is where the story starts taking a turn. Here, the analysis is, this is the point where Bali's mentality is being tested. Okay, Shukracharya tells him that Shukracharya can easily see, because of his own powers, he can see that this is actually Vishnu who has come, and he has come for the specific purpose of, getting back the kingdom for Indra. He knows everything. He can see through his vision that his mother, Indra's mother prayed for this, and he has come, and now he's here. And with these 3 steps of land, he's going to cover everything and take away everything that Bali has, and Bali will not even be able to fulfill it properly. So immediately he warns him. He says that, look, as your guru, it's my job to warn you that this guy is not an ordinary Brahmana, not a Brahmana, definitely not a kid. You think he's a kid, he's not a kid at all. He's not even a normal Brahmana. He's actually Vishnu himself. So don't get fooled by this. So please, just say no. And Bali says, how can I say no? Already said, promise the Brahmana something. He says that don't worry, when there is an enemy, it is not wrong. Dharma allows you to take back a promise that you have given to somebody who has come to harm you, right? If it is a normal Brahmana who has come there and you take back your promise, you will get pap in doing that. But this is not a normal Brahmana. He is an enemy who has come. And he has come with a specific intention of robbing you, of taking away whatever you have. And therefore, it is not wrong. Dharma allows you to take back a promise from somebody who's come to harm you, right? It makes sense. So Shukracharya gives him appropriate advice, which from a material perspective is perfect. But here, this is where the commentators, you see, if you look at Vishwanath Chakravarti's commentary here, he says, what made Bali persist with that promise? He realized that what his guru was saying was correct. He believed his guru. He did not think that Shukracharya is just imagining something. Nor did he think that, I have enough that nobody can take away. He understood that, yes, this is Vishnu. And he, knowing that this is Vishnu and realizing that whatever Shukracharya says will come true, Bali says that, oh, okay, is this Vishnu? All right, I didn't know that earlier, but now I know it. But nevertheless, I will give him. So he then, if you see the next chapter, in the 20th chapter, if you read the arguments that Bali gives to Shukracharya, why he will persist with his promise, you will see that he is no longer speaking like a normal materialist. He's not talking in terms of punya and so on. He's talking in terms of bhakti. This is where bhakti begins to bloom in him. And they point out that this happens because Prahalad, his own grandfather, his kripa has been with Bali. Prahalad's kripa has been with Bali, that Bali's heart changes there. But bhakti begins to bloom and he speaks out of bhakti. He says that this is the same Vishnu who all of you worship. For everything that you want, you worship Vishnu. Vishnu is the Yajna Purusha. Every Yajna that is performed for any Deva, you take the name of Vishnu. Right? It is through Vishnu that you send it to that Deva. And it is Vishnu that you worship anyway. You think Vishnu is everything. You say that Vishnu is all encompassing. Everywhere you worship Vishnu. And now Vishnu himself has come in front of me and you are saying I should not give to him. It doesn't make any sense to me. He says that I will definitely give him. I'll definitely give him. And if he wants to kill me and take everything from me, I'm fine with that. I don't want anything. I no longer want anything. I just want everything to be given to, if it is Vishnu, then everything should go to Vishnu. So his mind has completely changed, right? Because if he was in his earlier Kamya mentality, the mentality with which he performed the Vishwadhyut Yaga, right, with which he wanted to conquer the whole universe, if that mentality was still there at this point of time, then he would just take the advice of Shukracharya and do whatever Shukracharya said. He would refuse to Vishnu. He would continue to see Vishnu as an enemy, right? He would see Vishnu as an enemy and he would not want to give him anything. But he doesn't see Vishnu like that anymore. Vishnu is now an object of his bhakti. Right? Earlier, Vishnu was just a person who provided the material returns for him. Now, it's no longer that. He says, let Vishnu take everything from me. I don't want anything for myself. And with that, he offers to Vishnu. He offers to he and his wife. His wife also enters the picture here. Her name is, I think, Prativindra. She offers there. She comes there, and she and Bali together offer everything to Vishnu. And they bow down before Vishnu. They bow down before that Vamana and say, please take your 3 steps of land. And then we know what happened. And then you can see that Vishnu, Vamana covers everything that Bali has with the 2 of his steps. With 1 step, he covers the entire earth, and the 2nd step, he covers the entire upper planetary system. And then in the 21st chapter, Vamana, in that form, in that huge, gigantic form, where everybody is completely, people are shocked, people are beyond their senses, and people are in complete awe for what is happening. That form of Vishnu, he chastises Bali. He says that, who the hell do you think you are? You thought you were so great. You thought that you are this, you are that. And now, you made such a big promise to me. You thought that, you can give me anything that you want to give. He just blasts him. And he says that, you deserve to be punished. And you tell me now, where will I keep my 3rd step? You tell me, you have nothing with you. Right? So he humiliates him. Not humiliates, I would say he pulls him up and he sizes him up and he says that you are nobody, and and basically this is actually kripa. This is where bhakti is about this. Bhakti is about recognizing that we are nobody, we are nothing, we don't have anything with us. When we don't have bhakti, when we think we are performing bhakti, when we first come to bhakti, we think that, okay, I'm giving something to Vishnu. This belongs to me, I'm giving it to Vishnu. Now Vishnu will give me something in return, right? But actually, when bhakti becomes pure, when we become perfect in bhakti, we realize that nothing belongs to us. Everything actually belonged to him only. It happened to be with us for some time. And it actually is a process of acknowledging that everything belongs to him. Bhakti is only about acknowledging, it's not about giving anything to him. So he brings Bali to that state of mind. And Bali's consciousness is now in the consciousness of Bhakti. And eventually this ends with Bali surrendering himself, and Vamanadeva blesses him. He says that, okay, now that you are, Prahlad also appears there, and there are prayers offered by Prahlad as well. And eventually it ends in a happy way with Vamanadeva saying that, okay, now I will send you. Now that you are freed from this punishment is over for you, and now I will send you to the lower planetary system. Okay, Indra will have to occupy this, not for you, this is for Indra. And you will occupy a place known as Sutala. And in Sutala, one of the lower planetary systems, I will be present with you all the time. I will protect you. My Sudarshan Chakra will be there, and I will be there. You will always be able to see me. And at the end of this life, at the end of your life as Bali in Sutala, you will be the next Indra. In the next Manvantara, called as the Savarina Manvantara, you will become the Indra. After this Indra's term is over, you will become the Indra for one Manvantara. That blessing is given to him. So this is how this story ends. So essentially, I wanted to connect the 12th sloka of the 4th chapter. How this shloka is actually connected to so many other things that Sri Bhagavan says. In essence, Kamya-karma is rejected in the Gita, and bhakti is propagated. So the story of Bali very smoothly connects the two things. How Kamya-karma begins, Bali begins with Kamya-karma and then ends with bhakti. Okay, so this is the essence of the Gita as well. And I will stop here for today. And if you wish to ask me any questions or make any comments, we can take that.
I had here was so we see that Vedas are directly coming from God's mouth himself, and we also see several avatars in terms of, say, Rama, or in terms of Krishna, who at different points in time are saying that this is how you should approach it. So and then sometimes they kind of go, I'd say not contradictory, but then probably takes it to a different level and makes us think that, okay, so Ram gives a certain definition of dharma as Maryada Purushottam. And then when Bhishma and Dronacharya are following all of that, what happens is Draupadi's Shirharan and things like that. That's what Krishna comes and says, you know what, try to understand only your dharma is not the biggest thing. It's the bigger dharma. Think about the greater good. That is what the entire purpose of Krishna was, that love everybody, love the whole world, not just yourself and your dharma. So and we saw today, previously mentioned, that how God wants us to think above the Vedas. So whereas Vedas are Sanatan, they have always been there and possibly originating from the Godhead. So why not give one path? Why give multiple paths? Is it for different segments of people? And if it's for different segments of people, how do we know? How do we come to decide which particular path is for whom, and at which level? How do I know that, okay, I'm more suitable, given my births and personality, to be, say, living a life more of a Rama than a Krishna? I'm just confused there as to how we as human beings can think of it, because all of these are characters that are good and try to teach us something, then how do we make the decision on who is the characteristic or something that we should aspire to be?
Well, the answer to this is very simple. I'll give a material analogy. It's just like there are people studying in school. When we are studying in school, there are so many other children studying with us. So when we come to the 12th standard, we see that different children will take different paths of future higher education. Somebody will go for science, someone goes for arts, humanities, someone goes for say commerce, finance. So why do different people go in different directions? Is anybody forcing them? Well, in India, yes, earlier people were forcing that you should do only engineering, but let's take a system like it's today. There are many more options, or let's take a system like in the West. In the US, for example, everything is considered equally good. People can pursue whatever they want. So people are allowed to pursue what they naturally are inclined towards, what naturally attracts them. In the universal system, too, it is like that. It is said that the Jivatmas in material existence are eternally have been here, Anadi, from Anadi Kala. So since Anadi Kala, they have been doing different types of karma, having different types of samskaras because of experience. So samskara means the impressions that are created in our subtle body, and thereby developing different types of vasanas or tendencies, orientations, right? So what we have today, the orientation that we have today, the likings, dislikes, preferences, etc., are an accumulation of what we have been through in countless number of previous births, as well as the present birth, the years that we have spent in the present birth. So these orientations, they dictate what we want to do and what we are attracted to do, where we will naturally be comfortable with. So now, for example, the Bhagavad-gita, what it says, it's speaking about the parodharma and then sort of contrasting it with Kamya-karma, Nitya-naimatika karma, Samanya dharma, and saying that parodharma is superior, aim for moksha. But because of varying orientation, not everybody will be able to develop conviction in this message. Only a few people will find that this message is realistic, will find that there is something that they can latch on to and take forward after hearing about moksha, after hearing about Maya, overcoming Maya, etc. Even though a lot of people are hearing it. Okay, I've seen this over the last 30 odd years that I've been reading this and being associated with this message. Now, to me, this looks very real, and that's why I have permanently latched on to it, and I'm reading Gita again and again. But to many people I know, who also I know read the Gita with me, have discussed with me, etc., they respect the Gita. They say, oh, it is so nice, this message is so good. But they're still living in the world of largely, engaging in different types of materialistic activities, expanding their material wealth as the primary focus of their life. To them, the message of Gita is nice to hear, but not something that they feel as real to practice in their own life. They don't internalize it. You follow? So these are very subtle differences between us. And so Sri Bhagavan therefore gives the Veda so that everybody can find something for themselves in it. For every desire, for every kind of orientation, there is something that the Veda can cater to, so that people can achieve their desires without performing papa, without adharma. You see, once you abide by the dharma, by Veda, then you are within the gambit of dharma. There's no pap for you. So Sri Bhagavan, out of his kindness, he allows them to be within dharma and achieve their desires. That is the ocean of the Veda. Does it answer your question?
Yes, it does. So I think from a Grihastha perspective, like for example, in Ramayana, we also see that Ram gets affected. That was also one of the Leelas of Vishnu. And Ram does get affected where Sita gets abducted by Ravana.
Yes.
And we see that. Whereas probably if Vishnu would have been in the Krishna form in Ramayana, he probably would have been like, okay, now she has been abducted. Now let me plan for how I get back, instead of lamenting that Sita is gone, because Krishna is probably more unattached to the existence. Rather, he's like, okay, this is something I have to face, and now let me deal with it in a more smarter way. And that's probably the lesson in that okay, Ram was also there, and Krishna brings a different perspective where it's tougher to follow, but it probably leads to greater I don't know, greater alignment with the ultimate Krishna or ultimate creator. Does that make sense? Am I saying something correct?
Yeah, in different manifestations, when he manifests as Rama, when he manifests as Krishna, these different manifestations, he comes in different moods with different purposes to fulfill. So in his manifestation as Rama, he is the son of the king, Dasharatha, and he has to continue the dynasty. So he conducts himself as an exemplar of dharma, right? He shows how a king should behave, conduct himself with different types of subjects, beginning with his own wife, his brothers, his other people, his mothers, the way he treats Kaikeyi, for example. Kaikeyi is the one who asked him to go there, but the way he respects her, the way he worships her, everything about Rama, that appearance as Ram is an exemplar for others. And also he shows his responsibility towards his own wife. Somebody has stolen his wife and he's given his life to find her back. He wants to get her back at any cost. So he roams around and finally manages to take the help of the Vanaras and gets her back. So in his appearance as Krishna, there are other moods to display. He displays those moods in Vrindavan, the moods of pure bhakti, Vraj bhakti, and then later on in Dwaraka, in Mathura, the way he kills Kamsa. Allows Kamsa to attack him first with those wrestlers and everything. And then at the right time, he allows Kamsa to insult him enough, and then finally comes and attacks him. So in everything, he shows some example for a way in which a human being can live his life according to dharma. In everything that he does.
Right.
There is kushalata. Kushalata means a skill, a particular, you can say, a knack in which he does everything. He's very clever, that people appreciate, oh, what a nice way of doing it. Like the way the Vamana Leela also. So without breaking any dharma, he didn't interfere with dharma in any manner. But without interfering with dharma, he performed a Leela by which Bali was removed from that illegal position that he had occupied. And Indra was reinstated, and Bali also was given bhakti in the meantime. Multiple goals were achieved in one single Leela, right?
So, like, we as people, I think, and this is my last sub question, and I'll probably, ask others to ask any questions. But I think my last sub part to this is, a lot of times when we are making decisions, when we are faced with decisions in our life, we start thinking, okay, like as kids, probably we start emulating our parents and elder brothers and sisters, that okay, how would they make this decision if they were in my place? I think that's like, some people are they think that, okay, I want to make the right decision, and that's why they think, okay, how do I think like my brother? And then as you grow up, you want to emulate, say, your father or somebody, or anybody for that matter. So I keep thinking, so now that I'm faced with a lot of issues or say decisions or challenges in my life, I do start thinking, okay, how would like I've listened to Krishna stories. How would Krishna think about a problem like this? And how would his approach be? How would Sthita Pragyata be in application? I do think like that at times, that okay, how should I conduct myself so that I can wade through this problem in the best possible way? So that's where I come, like, okay, so at that point, should I think, how did Rama think about this? Because Rama was more in the society, whereas Krishna was, like, while he was in the society, he was more like an umbrella in several ways, whereas Rama participated in the society. So should I? So I don't know if it's a good question that way, but I'm trying to think. Should we as humans think that way? That okay, how would Krishna's approach in this situation be? Or how would Rama's approach in this situation be?
Yes. How would Krishna and Rama think in this situation is a higher level question. But a more practical question to ask would be, how would he want me to think in this situation?
Yeah, I think
How would he want me to think? Not what would he do if he was here. So what would he do if he was here is one way to ask the question. But knowing that he is the supreme consciousness, the way he can act, we may not be able to do anything that he is capable of doing.
Yes.
For example, the Leela of Vamana, we cannot expand our body like the way he expanded there, right? So how would he, so in the path of bhakti, how we think in terms of bhakti is this. How would he want me to think? What would please him? What if I did would make him happy, would make him pleased with my behavior? So this is the thinking of the bhakta. And then the answer comes. When you start thinking deeply like this, when there is a dilemma, when there is a difficult situation, or if the situation is a recurring situation, let's say, for example, somebody's behavior. I'll give you a very practical example. There's somebody in your workplace whose behavior you are not able to tolerate, his mannerisms. He may not be doing anything wrong from a legal point of view, but just the way he speaks, or the kind of comments he makes, or the kind of phrases he uses, you may find that very annoying, right? Sometimes we find people, co-workers like that. So then it's not one situation, it's not one point thing. It is something that persists, right? It's something that you have to deal with. You have to live with that. You have to live with that person because you're in that job and you don't have any, that can't be the reason for leaving the job, right? It's not so bad. So you have to now figure out how to deal with that. What should your conduct be? How should you respond, or how should you conduct yourself in a way that that person's behavior doesn't disturb you anymore? You cannot change that person, but you can change yourself, by which that person no longer becomes disturbing. So this internal change that we bring about is something that comes when we ask this question, that how would he like me to look at this situation? What would please him? What change in me would he want me to bring about that would make him very happy? This is called the thinking of anukulata. Anukulata is the element of bhakti, is the core of bhakti. Ekata anukulata. Ekata means the thinking that he belongs to me. Krishna is mine and I am Krishna's. You see, he belongs to me, I belong to him. That's called ekata. And anukulata means what would please him? You know, my behavior, my conduct, my thinking, my mentality, that would be pleasing to him. That's called anukulata. So this question of anukulata is the one that gives the answer of how to deal with that situation. The answer comes from inside. So what I was trying to say is that it's not by trying to pick out some example from the Krishna Leela or Rama Leela. You're not trying to pick out, oh, in that situation, Rama did this, so let me do that now. The point is that I cannot imitate him, right? Instead, this question, the way I answered it now, this is what we do in the bhakti. We look for an answer, and he gives the guidance from inside. From within, the guidance comes.
Thank you. This was very helpful.
Om Shanno Mitra Sham Varunah Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shan Indro Brihaspatihi Shanno Vishnurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmavadisham Hridamavadisham Satyamavadisham Tanmamavit Tadvaktaramavit Avin Mam Avin Vaktaram Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Dhanyavadaha. Punarmilamaha.